Ken Burns, I mean, you don't even need an introduction. You kind of are documentary filmmaking, aren't you, at this point? I mean, I know you can't say that, but I can say that. And you were talking about a subject that I remember when I had been in New York. I was right out of school, Central Park jogger, and it was like a session that rattled New York. Just on every level it hit, whether did the woman deserve it, what is she doing running at 10:30 at night, and then the massive manhunt to get the kids, which is obviously what this film deals with.
It was the crime of the century. It was the thing that showed us that this city that we loved had completely fallen apart. We'd had a crack epidemic that had gone on for most of the 80s. There had been all these horrible crimes and murders, racial crimes, and this was the apotheosis. This was the very worst. This was the crime of the century, as the mayor, Ed Koch, said, and we all wanted justice. And we were told within a few hours of the crime that they'd had these kids and they'd done it, and everything plowed towards it. And what we found out 13 years later is that they had categorically not done it, had gone to jail, served out their full sentences without a possibility of parole, because after they'd implicated themselves, they then said these were these were coerced confessions. They didn't do it. And then they've spent nearly as long, almost a decade, trying to find some final justice after their convictions were vacated. And it is one of these travesties of justice that we all ignore. We all bought into the story. We were all sure they were right, and there wasn't a bit of doubt.
Why wouldn't we think they were right? There's no reason to think
the media was all behind it. It sold lots of newspapers. It inflamed our sense of fear. The cops were certain. The assistant district attorneys were certain. It was just a slam dunk, and you were just happy that it was solved, but sort of what's happened to society. And then the story is that none of those things were true. And so what was taken was the childhood of these 5 men, and what was taken was their humanity. And what our film is an attempt to do is to sort of restore it, remind people that they are not these hardened, evil wolf pack, but these kids from middle-class families who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and paid for it with, their childhoods. When we had the screening today, we asked Raymond Santana, one of the 5 who we came up here to walk up on stage. He had watched the film. He was so overwhelmed, and the audience stood up and gave him a standing ovation. And later, someone just came up to me and it says, I think that was our way of apologizing. It was so moving, and Raymond had tears in his eyes and couldn't speak. And it was, I think it's the possibility that film could affect something.
That was great. Well, it's always good to see you.
Thank
Your
you.
stuff
It's my
is
pleasure.
always fantastic. So congratulations. I really look forward to seeing the film.